All right. Hello, and thank you for joining me, Ashley Jacobson, for another installment of the Smittcamp Family Honors College Fireside Chat. Today, I'm super excited to have Raj Badhesha joining me. Welcome, Raj.
Ashley.
So a little bit of background on Raj. Raj is a native of Fresno County and attended Sanger High School before becoming a President Scholar with the Smittcamp Family Honors College at Fresno State. While at Fresno State, Raj was in the Craig School Honors Program, a Maddy Institute Scholar-Intern in Washington, D.C., and held multiple offices in ASI, the student government at Fresno State. In addition to being involved in Alpha Kappa Psi professional business fraternity and the Sikh Student Association. During undergrad, he also studied North Indian classical music and Gurmat Sangeet for a semester in Punjab, India. Raj graduated magna cum laude with a BS in business administration with an emphasis in marketing and a minor in communication, and went on to attend law school at UC Hastings College of Law. After graduate school, Raj returned home and began practicing law at Baker, Manock & Jensen, PC, and later transitioned to an in-house position with the City of Fresno. Raj is currently an assistant city attorney and works on many interesting and novel legal issues, along with some less than interesting routine matters. Raj resides with his family on their farm in Selma. He and his wife, Carr, have two energetic children who keep them busy and tired. In his free time, Raj enjoys spending time with family and friends and traveling to see family and friends. So, Raj, thanks again for joining me today. Now that we've heard a bit about your background and know your hometown and where you went to high school, can you share a bit on why you chose the Honors College at Fresno State?
Well, being a first generation college graduate or attendee at that point, I think I had been, because I'm from the Central Valley, preordained that I'd go to Fresno State. I did apply to a couple of other colleges outside of Fresno, but I mean, in the back of my head, I wanted to stay close to home and close to family, and my family, I think, wanted me to stay close. So when I was applying to Fresno State, this was just, I did not know about the Honors College until my college guidance counselor, my high school guidance counselor for college, recommended that I apply. I was in the top of my class, and so it made it, I was just one of the people that applied. And so I kind of fell into the Smittcamp Family Honors College. I didn't really know what I was getting into, other than this is a pretty good program. There are some good perks, including tuition and the dorm allowance, etc. So I kind of fell into Smittcamp just because I happened to be a good student in high school, and my counselor advised that I apply. But it was a great thing to fall into. There was another person from my high school that also was in Smittcamp the same year that I was. So, I knew somebody at least in the program, but the program really was set up at the time, and I believe still, to create a really good social atmosphere and academic atmosphere for kids. And at that point, as a freshman in college, you're still a kid. So, but that's how I sort of came into the Smittcamp Family Honors College.
And remind me, what year was your entering class?
I entered in 2001, so it has been quite a while.
Yeah, well, and because I was a student assistant in the Honors College office, and so I
handed you my application packet because back then, number one, I was a little bit of a procrastinator, so I waited until the last day, but you had to hand in paper applications. And so I remember coming into the office, and I remember meeting you.
Yes, yeah. No, it's fun to look back now and have those memories. So speaking of which, what is your favorite memory of your time at Fresno State?
Oh man, that would be tough to pick just one memory. I think to be very honest, I think the whole experience was just a great experience. There are a lot of memories from the program and from college, including for Smittcamp, the orientations that we did every year. We did the camps every year. Those were fun. Even
the Camp Viola experience you're referring to?
Camp Viola experiences, yeah. Even coming to the Honors College office on off time, the colloquia, they were all right, but I mean, coming to the Honors College office on off times and sort of having a home base was amazing. Having the ability as a student at such a large university, because Fresno State is not a small school by any means. There are a lot of students, but having the ability to be in that sort of big school environment, but still feel like you're in a small liberal arts type of program was just a great experience. But I mean, if you were to distill it down, it was just the quality of people. So my sort of fondest memory is the ongoing relationships that I was able to build while I was there. So, and I've got friends from my class that I still connect with, and people that I still talk to. But yeah, that was the best part of, I think, the experience.
Okay. And how did your experience in the Honors College help you to expand your horizons? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, being in the Honors College was really good for those people that didn't necessarily know what they wanted to do, but knew that they wanted to do something big. And that's because there were a lot of kids in the school, in the Honors College, that were really driven. So, you look to your left, you look to your right. Well, you're all gonna graduate, but you're all gonna do great things as well. I mean, the people to your left and your right are the people that are going to go into PhD programs and onto graduate school, or to get professional certifications and become experts in their fields, or get medical degrees, etc. And so you are in a group that everybody is really driven, and so by sort of osmosis, you are exposed to all of everybody else's interests. Also keeping in mind that the Honors College experience is an experience where you come in as a cohort. So I think the class sizes are 50 now, but at the time they were 75, which is 25 students is a lot more than 50, I would say. So you get a little bit more exposure, a little bit more of an opportunity to meet different, be exposed, to different experiences. And so when you're talking to people and sort of learning about their interests, there are going to be things that you might also be interested in, that they're interested in, or you might think, man, that's something that I should look into because I might like something comparable. And so the exposure, I think, the broadening of horizons came from being in a group of people who were all driven. And it's because of the Honors College application process, because you're looking at sort of a holistic individual. You're not just looking at somebody with great grades. You're looking at somebody that has good grades, that is involved in their local community, that does community service, and that has more to offer to the university than just their grades or just their sport, etc. So that would be my answer, yeah.
So at what point did you decide to go to law school?
I think going to law school was something that was in the back of my head. My parents, I was lucky, they were not very pushy about what profession I should enter into. I think they just wanted me to graduate from college and get a job that I was proud of. I had been involved in forensics and debate, Lincoln Douglas debate in high school. Being a lawyer was something that people threw around like it was something casual. I didn't know any lawyers in my personal life. Even through undergrad, I had a couple of friends who had dads that were lawyers who I met in the Honors College. And so I talked to my friends' parents, I think at some point before applying to law school, but it was just something that was in the back of my head. I did not think about it once my freshman or sophomore year in school, I think, because I was just focused on getting my degree. But come junior year, when you're starting to think about graduate school entrance exams, that's when I really started thinking about, hey, I'm going to look at law schools. Let's start looking at, which schools I should apply to, how rankings impact, how distance impacts, etc. So I would say my junior year is when I really started solidifying the notion and creating a reality out of the idea of going to law school.
And was selecting the area of law you wanted to study challenging for you, or is it something that you knew immediately?
No, because of the lack of exposure, had zero idea of what I was going to do. And honestly, as a naive undergraduate student, and even to some extent a naive law school student, a graduate student, you don't know what you want to do ultimately. And law is one of those professions that there are so many specialties. once you start practicing law, you really have to specialize. It's really hard to be a jack of all trades. So it wasn't actually until I started practicing law at Baker, Manock, and Jensen in Fresno that I really sort of got to realize the things that I wanted to do additional research on and learn more about so I could practice law in those areas. In law school, I knew I was interested in con law, constitutional law, due process issues, free speech issues. I also knew that I was interested in real property. Property was probably my favorite subject, my 1L or first year of law school. In my first year curriculum, I enjoyed contracts. And so just thinking about the classes that I enjoyed in law school, and then when I went to Baker, Manock, and Jensen, I was able to, just out of sheer luck, it's a great firm. It was a great training ground for me. They gave me the opportunity to sort of be exposed to everything. They were not pushy, and I can't say that about them now, I don't know. But at the time, I had a lot of latitude to work with a lot of different partners and experience different areas of the law. And I ended up doing a lot of work that had to do with real property matters, a lot of work that had to do with individual rights and contracts. And then when I transitioned over to the city of Fresno, I knew one thing. I didn't want to go to court because I had had that experience. So in the law, there are a lot of different paths. But generally, if you're practicing civil law, it's divided into transactions and litigation. Litigation is the attorneys that actually go to court. I wasn't necessarily interested in going to court and dealing with all of the contention that is involved in suing or being sued, defending matters, etc. But I did know that I enjoyed building things. So crafting contracts was something that was interesting to me. So when I went to the city of Fresno, that's sort of the transactions part of the law is what I went in wanting to practice and telling them that I'd want to practice in that area. And that's where I started at the city of Fresno as a transactions attorney. And so what I do is I do a lot of contract drafting. I talk to my clients to see what their goals are when they want to, what they want to achieve. And then my job is really to help them achieve those goals before there's contention and dispute.
I really appreciate how you shared your journey in terms of not really knowing, especially to your point of being a naive college student, right? Where we don't really know what we want to be when we grow up. And I think part of, at least my professional journey is just coming to accept that that's okay. I still don't know where I'm going to be 10 years from now, and that's okay.
Yeah.
So
what's funny is at the time, because I remember at the time, I was very anxious about not knowing what I wanted to do in the law, right? Because people who go to law school and graduate programs are also just as driven as Smittcamp Honors College students. So you're surrounded by people that are like, yeah, I want to be a prosecutor, or I want to do this type of law. And you're sitting there going, I have no idea what I want to do. All I know is that I enjoy reading and knowing things, right? And that I want to do something that I'm going to enjoy in the future. I enjoyed writing and I enjoyed reading and really studying the law. And that sounds dorky, but I did. And so that was sort of where I started in law. But even it's funny that you go in and you're very anxious when you don't know these things. And there are definitely stereotypes that you go in with that make you think, well, all lawyers just go to court. Very, very small fraction of attorneys actually are in court a lot. And so, and there's a lot you can do.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that. Because I think that, and it's a lot of pressure, one, to select a major when you're starting college. And, in most cases, when you're in the application process, is still in high school. And then, trying to get clarity through the process is still, challenging. And it's just a matter of saying yes to the things we enjoy and no to the things that aren't interesting. So on that, how did you choose business to be your major?
So I chose marketing, actually. I knew when I handed my application in that day in December, I think, in 2000, it was, just before Christmas, I want to say, when the applications were due. I had 4 majors listed on my application. So one of them happened to be business, one was communication, poli-sci, and I forget the other one, history, I think I put on there. But I ended up doing business because when I was looking at the different options when I got to Fresno State, marketing seemed to be something that I could fall back on. I thought I'd enjoy it. And so I went into the Craig School of Business program, ultimately knowing that I wanted to graduate with a marketing emphasis, and maybe work in marketing. And when you're sort of taking the classes and talking to your professors who are practitioners in the field, you understand, and realize different things. But I wanted to be a marketing major and sort of be out there and maybe work on ad campaigns and market research. And that's how I chose business. I didn't have like some other lofty idea of like opening up a business or anything like that, or.
That's great. So let's transition then and talk about a little bit more about your career. So
Sure.
You've shared that after Fresno State, you went to law school, and then it sounds like immediately after that, you went to work for Baker Manock Jensen, which, by the way, we both used to work there in Fay Garden Financial Center, so I remember seeing you from time to time. And then it sounds like after that, you went to go work for the City of Fresno. Is that, I didn't miss any stop along the way.
Oh, I went from college to grad school to Baker Manock, and the way law sort of school and jobs work is it's a 3-year program for most law school programs. That's the regular program. There are extended 4-year programs as well for people to have like sort of other commitments. I think they're called night programs. But anyway, so after law school, after your first year, you typically do something that you're interested in. You may or may not work for a firm or a public defender's office, whatever. But after your second year, you typically do an internship or an externship in an area that you're interested in. And I know that in accounting it's very similar, but you will do an internship or a summer at a firm, and it's really a summer-long interview. And so, in your 3 years, after your second year, you do this interview, because after your third year, you're going to be studying for the bar, right? So I interviewed at Baker Manock for the summer after my second year, and then I ended up being offered the position after that summer, so that a year later, when I graduated and took the bar, I could go back and work for them as an associate attorney. So I worked with Baker for a few years, and then I had an opportunity. Somebody sent me an ad for the City of Fresno. I mulled over it quite a bit. I remember I probably called the HR person with the city attorney's office 4 or 5 times. I know I spoke with a couple of people who were actually working in the office before deciding to actually apply, because I was comfortable where I was. But it was a great decision, I would say. So I went from Baker Manock to the City of Fresno.
Great. Yeah.
And ever since.
How many years have you been there then?
Oh man, I've been there. I'm on my 10th year. So this year will be a decade. Yeah.
So that's fantastic. And so I assume then that you may or may not, you probably don't use your marketing aspect of your major.
No, not at all, actually. I mean, yes and no, right? I think in marketing, one of the things that we did quite a bit, especially in a couple of our upper division classes, was do presentations. And so now and again, I have to do PowerPoint presentations. I advised commissions, and I still do sort of on the back end as backup sometimes. But I did a number of trainings for city officials and on behalf of the city attorney's office. And so in that respect, I think I do get to use some of the skills that I gained in my marketing courses. But as a general matter, because we're in-house, our office, the city attorney's office, is in-house at the city. We're in the building and we are employees of the city, and anybody in the city can reach out to us for legal advice through their supervisors and their proper channels. It's not the same as if you are out on your own and you're having to market yourself to gain clients. I've got a ready set of clients, and there's more than enough work. which is a blessing and also a curse sometimes. But yeah, I'm able to use my marketing skills somewhat, but not sort of the way you would think.
And how has the pandemic impacted your work, whether it be working from home or the type of work? Can you share a bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I think so. It's been very impactful to our specific office, actually, and to the entire city. The city is an employer that employs, I want to say, 4,000 plus people. It's a big employer, and for a good chunk of those people are people that work in City Hall at computers, and at desks and counters. So when the pandemic hit and there was a lockdown, it really impacted how business is done, including for our office. We showed up for the office every day. It was an 8 to 5 type of situation with some overages, as needed. But for the most part, everybody worked in pre-March 2020 in the office at City Hall. Come March 13 of 2020, I believe that was the date that the governor declared an emergency. Or thereabouts, our lives changed in that we couldn't go to City Hall. And so we started working remotely and sort of taking advantage of Zoom, and we have Teams, which is what we're using here today. And really sort of started transitioning into a very different type of communication. A lot of work done now is done via virtual communication. We were using email before, but where we would use, conference rooms to have meetings, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, all of those meetings either happened on conference call or on one of these media platforms like Zoom or Teams. And so now that we're sort of, we're almost out of the pandemic. I think the government regulations are being lifted, and in light of this sort of easing of regulations and people going back to City Hall, there's a lot of lingering remote work or telework, and that's a blessing, because I think that during the pandemic, one of the things that I really enjoyed was, and I was one of those people that I never thought that I would be able to do remote work. Like, I always saw bloggers and people on social media and I even had friends that would work from home, and I'd be a little bit skeptical, right? And be like, oh, that'd be so difficult for me, because my life was so compartmentalized. There was family time and there was work time, and the drive home and the drive to work was sort of that time to either decompress or prep yourself for the next stage of your day. Well, you don't get that if you're working from home, right? Because you're like literally opening your door in your private life or your work life. So I was very skeptical. But the pandemic taught me that telework is a wonderful thing, and it's a blessing in that you're really close to. We have children. I have children, and so my wife and I. And so it was really nice to be able to just at lunchtime have lunch with the family, which is something that you can't necessarily do. And seeing as that during the pandemic, everybody's lives were impacted, including the lives of school children. It was nice to be able to take that sort of mutual break and help out with your children's lives, because they were impacted as well. And so getting back to your original question, how has the pandemic impacted? I think the pandemic has really changed the way people view our ability to telework in a positive way, and given people a lot more freedom to get their work done, but also save half an hour of commute every day, and spend that time with their family or friends or doing something that they enjoy. And I think that has a lot of value in it, and it really makes for happier employees. The pandemic has certainly provided a lot more flexibility to people's lives. I don't think, and I truly believe that the quality of work has not suffered because of the increase in telework. Because I think that's one of the concerns, right? When you're even like in accounting, or when I was working in a traditional law firm, we would go in. But I know now that a lot of law firms are going to the remote and telework model, where attorneys come into the office for conferences and meetings, But a lot of them are choosing to work from home and only come to the office as needed because the added flexibility allows them so much more quality of life than having to get dressed up every day and show up to work, which, I think is a great benefit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that it's really,
I mean, in your profession, I imagine that you've faced something similar in terms of the ability to telework and get things done.
yeah, and it's, really then being intentional about how to use the time when in the office, right? Because
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense for me to be in the office but have back-to-back Zoom calls with, people who are not in the office. So then it's, yeah, just bringing that element. And then I think the biggest challenge moving forward is how do we make sure that we are, doing on the job training justice, because I think that that's something that we haven't quite figured out how to do it virtually.
100% I agree, because one of my functions as an assistant city attorney is I help sort of new attorneys in the office, sort of train them and get them acclimated to our way of doing things and provide them with sort of insight on, here's, if you have this issue, this is who you need to talk to, or here are the forms. And that was a lot harder because in a traditional setting, and now I think because we're back to the office for a good part of our week, that's a little bit easier. But during the lockdown, when we weren't going into the office at all, it was a lot harder. And there was a very deliberate effort to pick up the phone or set a Zoom meeting with newer attorneys and say, hey, like, what do you have going on? Whereas before you would just walk by an office and you'd have a little bit more ability to see what work was going on and maybe see where people needed help. So I would agree with you. Yeah, it's a little bit of an upward, it's a little bit of a curve trying to understand how we train new attorneys or, deal with training on onboarding new employees, period.
Right. And I think just it requires that extra bit of intention to think about, if I'm working from home today, how am I going to spend my day versus if I'm in the office, what am I going to do? So.
One thing I do want to say is, though, that being in person, I think it makes it easier on you sometimes when you have back-to-back meetings. I noticed, and you may have dealt with this, but during the pandemic when we were full-time at home, there were a lot of back-to-back Zoom meetings, but nobody wants to make time to go to the bathroom or get a drink of water, right? And if you're a minute late, people are like, why are you a minute late? Well, I needed to get some water.
Yes, yeah. And I was talking to someone who is experiencing continued, video conference calls, and they were like, maybe we need to start scheduling these for, 5 minutes before the half-hour mark.
Yeah.
In order to give people that time. Let's see. So let's transition to life. So after, going to law school, you moved back to the Fresno area. So and you live on the family farm, it sounds like, in Selma. So was that the primary draws to be near family? Can you talk a little bit about your decision to move back?
Yeah, sure. I think I always planned to come back to Fresno. I went to school in San Francisco. Hastings is located in downtown San Francisco, just steps away from City Hall. It was a very different existence being in a big city, and certainly there are opportunities there. But I knew I was coming back, and that's why after my first year, I came back to the Valley and worked at the Court of Appeal, and then looked for jobs in the Valley after my second year, and ended up working here for the summer in Fresno at a local firm. And then I decided to come back right after I was offered the position. But yeah, in my personal life was definitely the draw for all of those very intentional moves, because I wanted to be in the Valley. Going away for law school was, in my mind, important to get sort of outside exposure. And that was the time to move away and live in a big city. I mean, not that Fresno's not a big city, but we both know that Fresno's not. It does not have big city vibes. And so I came back because of family. We're very close. I have 2 siblings. At the time, I was not coupled, and I ended up coming back. And then, I met my wife, and she's from Fresno as well. Her family is here locally in Fresno. And so being in the area is very important to me and to my wife and to our family. And so we ended up shifting back to Selma, which is where I didn't grow up in Selma. My parents moved to Selma when I was in high school, but you know, I ended up building a house here just outside of the city of Selma, and you know, it's a little bit of suburbia mixed in with like farm life, and it's nice. We're just a minute away from the 99, so if we need to hop on the freeway to go to Fresno, it doesn't take very long. But we also have the ability to sort of be away from the buzz of living in the city. So, but yeah, we're out here on the property that I'm at. My parents live here, and when we have 2 children, and my wife and I live here as well. We've got a cat. We used to have a dog, but he passed away. But yeah, you know, it's nice. We take walks, and we don't have to, you know, necessarily like drive somewhere to take a walk, etc. It's nice.
That's great. So can you talk a little bit about how you define success and if that has changed over time?
You know, it probably has changed, and I don't know how I would define it as a younger me. I won't call myself old yet. As a younger myself, but I'm sure that a more naive Raj would have probably spoken more about sort of like professional success and maybe about, you know, making a lot of money. But I really think that success is being content, 100%, and that takes a lot of personal growth. In my journey, I've been able to sort of, I would define my journey to be a successful journey. You know, I did the things that I wanted to do professionally, academically. I hit the marks that I wanted to hit, and they were very deliberate. You know, while coming to or entering into the Smittcamp Honors College was not as deliberate as I think some students. I know families that have spoken with me, like they have freshmen in high school, and they'll say, you know, they want to go to the Smittcamp College, Honors College. And so I've talked to some kids as early as like freshmen in high school. My journey to Smittcamp was not that deliberate, but everything after that was a little bit more deliberate, right? And so I was able to reach my goals. I wanted to go to law school, got to law school. Wanted to, you know, work at a court, worked at a court, went to a firm, sort of moved up in my career. But none of that would really matter if I continued to, you know, be anxious about where I'm at in life. And so I think no matter where you are in life, if you are content where you are, and you may have goals, but that doesn't mean that you're feeling uneasy about where you are, I think you are successful, right? And sometimes that takes us time to get there. I've been very fortunate. I think that I've been able to stay grounded and just sort of like have at least a 5-year plan. It's made it easier. And as part of that idea or concept of success, I think it's important to understand that life changes and curveballs are a real thing. Earthquakes are a real thing. Sometimes your life changes in ways that you did not think it would change, right? And you have to be open to the concept of, and being open, I think, is part of that concept of being content and feeling good about where you are in life. You have to be open to knowing that if something changes, you will be okay. I think in just sharing some of my personal thoughts, I think in the world of social media and sort of instant gratification, a lot of kids lose sight of the fact that everything will be okay or things take time. You know, there are a lot of people on social media and out there on the internet looking for instant validation and thinking that that is a sign of success. And I think that once you sort of rise above that idea and realize that things take time and that a journey really does it is about the path as well as the goal, right? You can be a little bit more content and be a little bit more happy. So anyway, I define success by how you are able to handle the curveballs in your life and feel content in where you are in the moment. You're not always going to feel successful, but having that sort of belief that it will be okay is very important, and that and sort of being grounded in the notion of everything will be okay.
I think that that's a really important life lesson that, and I mean, for me at least, it has been something I've had to learn. And, just through trial and error, and to look back on times when I've experienced circumstances that were, similar, not the same, but similar, and be like, okay, I survived, right? And it actually turned out really well. And so to have that perspective, and to also have just the confidence that, we have the perseverance and grit and tools necessary to allow us to keep going. Like, I would agree that that's a critical piece.
One of the things that any young person, well, most young people, I think, lack the ability to be patient, right? And I one of the things that I've gained from life, I think, is the ability to be patient, and that has made my mental health so much more, robust. I'm able, just knowing that if you're just patient, things will fall into place, and if they don't, they'll fall into a different place, but it'll still be okay. So.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks for sharing that, Raj. So with that, would you say there's a certain habit, or, maybe something that you've done over time just to help develop that mindset, or even just to handle stress in order to, whether it was to exercise that patience, or anything that you can share that has really helped you with developing that?
Let me think about this for a second. But patience is a learned skill for me personally. I mean, you knew me in undergrad. I don't think anybody would define me as a peaceful, placid type of personality. I was very much on the go all the time. So patience is something that I've had to learn over time. But I would say, in terms of habits, I think, and this is something that I learned. I don't know if you keep a task journal. It's something that I started doing in undergrad, actually. I used to have a planner, and in my planner, I would write, all the things that I needed to do. And I think back now, I still have all of my planners from undergrad through law school. But I used to keep just running lists of things that I needed to get done, right? Or that needed to get done eventually. And that really was something that allowed me to sort of see the big picture and immediate goals. And I think that is one thing that I would recommend to any individual, whether you're a student or you're a professional. I say that to new attorneys in our office as well, because I keep a task journal for work, and I've got one for my personal life as well. That it can be something as simple as pay the XYZ bill, right? Although I've got that down to a T now, but you know what I mean? It can be something that simple, but if it's written down, you can mark it off. And once you've done it, you've gained a success, and you've also sort of I feel like mentally you've taken care of something, and you've gotten a win out of it. And so you can feel like you're actually progressing. So anyway, a task journal or a planner that you have tasks to accomplish, and that you can see that you've actually accomplished, I think would be a great way to sort of see both the big picture and sort of understand that you are succeeding, right? And be okay with taking a little bit of time for some of those, more time for some goals or for some tasks as opposed to others. There are some things on my to-do list that have been there for years, and that's okay, right? We have bucket lists, so why can't we have task lists? Bucket lists that take lifetimes, so why can't we have task lists that take lifetimes too, right?
Right. Well, I think also it kind of helps us to have clarity around our priorities when we put a task on our list, and it takes a while to get to it, because then it's just the reality check of, and at least it gives you an opportunity to reflect and think, why am I procrastinating this, right? Is it because I'm avoiding an emotion, or is it because it's not important, or, and so then, you can understand yourself better.
And sometimes you take things off the list because you're like, no, it's been a year. I don't really want to do this anymore. I'm done with it.
Right. Yeah. No, I think
it gives you the opportunity to be introspective.
Right. Yeah. Which is great. No, thank you for sharing that. So beyond, living on the family farm and working, and anything else you'd want to share with individuals who you went to school with, that they may be interested to know what's keeping you busy these days?
Well, like you said at the beginning, my two kids are keeping me really busy. We we have a 7-year-old and a 1-year-old as of the date of the video. So we have a 6-year gap between our kids. So we have one kid that does a lot of activities and another kid that's very active, and has to be supervised all the time because otherwise she'll hurt herself, or others. No, for people that I went to school with, whoever you are, you are a part of my experience, and I appreciate and am thankful for having you in my past and some of you in my present. You made the experience what it was at Fresno State and in the Honors College. And for that, I am very grateful. And I would like to share some advice with, if there is this for new students as well, or is just, you know what? And I was invited to do a colloquium not long ago by Dr. Attar. And I said this at the end of the colloquium. I said, be nice to people, right? Being nice to people goes a long way. Even if it's been 2 decades since you've seen them, they will not, forget a good deed. And there were a lot of people that were very nice to me while I was at Fresno State, that I will not forget, and that made the experience a great one. So be one of those people that makes somebody else's experience a positive one.
I love that. Yeah, there's different things I've read that says, of all the things you can choose to be kind. And I think that that's right in line with what you're talking about. So you've spoken at one of the colloquium. How else? And I know you said you talked to some incoming high school freshmen. How else are you engaged with the Honors College and Fresno State?
So, let me think. So I've been on over the years, I've been involved in different capacities. So currently I'm just sort of getting back and getting re-involved. I took some time off, just because we had a young family, but I was on I worked with the Alumni Association. I was on the alumni board for Fresno State. So I was involved in that sense. And then I was on the scholarship committee for the university most recently. And I was involved with the Honors College as well. There was sort of a council formed of alumni, the Alumni Council. And I was involved we had an alumni club through the Alumni Association, but we had a Smittcamp alumni club that I was involved with for a couple of years. And most recently I read applications after doing the colloquium, and that was a great experience. I did applications probably a decade ago, but then I read them again this year, and it just sort of reminds you of the great crop of students coming into Fresno State. Fresno State is a place where there are a lot of great individuals that go to college. It's a local school, but it's a good school with good students. I'm trying to stay involved and give back to the university that's given so much to me. I think, it's sort of in line with that theme of gratitude. I'm grateful to the university because the atmosphere created locally is one that is, I would say, as good as any other. So try to give back as much as we can. In addition to sort of giving back when they actually ask you for money, when you're in that position, you should give back. Alumni help drive great programs and create opportunities for new incoming students and current students while you're at, that are at Fresno State when you're giving. So yes, we should also give financially as well, if, when you're able to.
So let's transition now to rapid fire questions.
Okay,
so,
I'll answer short.
All right, so let's talk about college days. What was your favorite course?
Ooh, my favorite course. I had a course with Dr. Rice in marketing. That was one of my favorite courses. All we did all semester was do presentations. We were partnered up, and I was partnered up with another honors student, Tanya Menezish. That's her maiden name. But we did presentations all year. It was a great course. Loved it. I also enjoyed, I had two. I also enjoyed communications course where we basically critiqued famous speeches and writings. So those were my favorite courses.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Who was your favorite professor?
Oh man, I don't think I had one favorite professor, but I enjoyed. I didn't have a favorite professor. Dr. Rodemeyer from the Smittcamp Family Honors College. Although I never took a class with him, he was a great mentor and a great individual.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Where was your favorite place to eat on campus?
Oh, the dining hall. Just kidding. I don't know. Yeah, I'm gonna pass on this one. The Honors College.
Oh, there we go.
Frozen peach cups.
Yeah, from the peach tree. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then looking back, anything you would have done differently in college?
Oh, no. I could say I would have tried harder or done more, but like I was really busy and I made lots of good friends and I succeeded. So at least for myself, I think it was a success. So no, I wouldn't change anything. Oh, yeah, no, I would. I would tell myself to buy Bitcoin. Yes. I would invest everything I had in Bitcoin.
That's funny. What is something that your classmates would be surprised to hear you're doing now?
I don't know. So you said that at the beginning, I think you mentioned that you remember me as an extrovert, and I would say I agree. But I think, I spend a lot of time like sort of resting these days, and I'm not as much of an extrovert as I used to be. I'm still extroverted, but I think that over time I have become one of those people that is maybe eventually going to be a grumpy old man. So
just remember to be kind.
I'm going to be kind, but I can see myself shaking my fist.
That is funny. So what is the most exciting thing in your life right now?
Well, my children. My children are the most exciting thing in my life right now. Because life sort of, when you have kids, and I know you can appreciate this, when you have kids, you understand that they're more important than you are, and nothing you want. I have a favorite dessert, for instance, and I'll keep it short, but I have a favorite dessert that I never share with anybody but our son, Beer Singh, who is now almost 7. I remember he was 2 and he came and he just grabbed it off my plate. And I remember thinking at the time, only for you. But, the most important thing in my life right now is my children. My job is to raise them as good human beings and to be as selfless as I can in that sort of positive progress for them. So yeah, that's what, and my family. My wife is very important as well, but we're a team. So she's on the same level as me. So for us, I would say our children are the most important.
Yeah. What book are you reading right now?
I'm listening to Michelle Obama's autobiography. Yeah.
And is there a book you've read multiple times or have gifted to others?
I have, in line with children's books, I've gifted some children's books to family and friends on multiple occasions. So we are of the Sikh faith, and so there's sort of a dearth of literature for children. So children's literature for young Sikh children in the West, because India is a faith. Sikhism is a faith that originated in northern India, and there's a large diaspora outside. And now there are, in this sort of time in our generation, there are a lot of people writing books. And so I collect children's books, and I like to give those away to family and friends when they come over, or we have events, occasions. So that's what I give away.
Yeah, that's great. And then last question, one piece of advice you'd give to current college students?
I think I've already given it, but that is be kind. Yeah, be nice to people. Yeah. If you ever have an inkling to be negative, just remember that those feelings are going to fade away. And if you're mean to somebody or you are really negative, you probably will feel more bad about that in your near future than the person you treated that way. So just be nice to people. You're going to get so much more out of life if you can stay positive. And everything will be okay, right? Everything will be okay. I know that for kids, for young college students, things are a big deal. They actually are a big deal, but if you fail, it's not a big deal. It really is not. In the big scheme of things, you will be all right. Yeah.
Well, and the key is to always get back up, right? So
Yes, 100%. Always get back up. Stay positive. I tell my son this actually because we're at this stage where he fails a lot at things. But if we have a saying, we say try again, and then you will be successful at some point. So if he tries and he fails, he has to try again. And that would be something I would tell to college students as well.
No, that's great advice. All right, Raj. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I really do appreciate that you took some time to catch up with me and share your experiences. And so we will include your email in case anyone wants to get in touch with you. And again, just thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Ashley. It's been a pleasure to catch up with you.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.